Okay, let's take two. I've no idea at all what went wrong there. um, so hopefully with this one it'll work. I've no idea what went wrong. Literally, my 10th live stream and 9 in a row have worked perfectly fine. Wow, 8 in a row have worked perfectly fine. One I did on Facebook that didn't work, and then this one. So weird. I just suddenly thought, why is everyone being silent on me? Why is no one typing comments? Normally, I'm instantly inundated with comments over on the side. So glad to see that this is working and the comments bit's working here. Yeah, I hope so. At the moment, just the two of us, I think, talking there. So let's hope the rest come and join in. Yep, hello. Hooray. Yes, I agree. That's annoying. I've now got a video here that doesn't have a whole big setup of me doing all that effort, doing a thumbnail and everything. And I'm going to have to do the same with this video afterwards so people can see what it is. But yes, at least this is working now. And at least it's a rare, or a hopefully rare, problem. Yeah, it's my YouTube hoodie. It's quite cold over here, although I'm warm at the moment. I know, yes, that was very annoying. I was talking and I couldn't see any chat, and someone then commented on Facebook saying, or a few people commented on Facebook saying there was chat that they could see, but I couldn't see it. And so I was there thinking, oh no, I'm talking to myself, because I couldn't see anyone's chats. So hopefully those people who were here will be back. I'm just letting them know. So I've got a few of you over here. Oh, okay. So for you, there was no chat. Maybe it was some glitch that had just gone around YouTube, and I just happened to get caught first, and it's gone around other people, perhaps as well. I don't know. But here now, and able to start taking ideas and things. So hopefully everyone's been having a good day or evening. I was saying to my wife the other day how odd it is, because obviously I do this at 10 p.m. Tuesday night, but for some people that might not be Tuesday night, might not even be Tuesday. Yeah, I read that comment. The gerbil is perfectly fine. I wouldn't let something happen to an animal in one of my stories. And yes, here I am. Yeah, I wouldn't let something happen to an animal in one of my stories. And so the owl is always friendly. The gerbil is always going to be friendly. Something might happen, like I might one day do a story where an eagle dives down and catches a fish or something, but I can't think of a story where I would do that. I'm more likely not to. I suppose I've done some stories with fishing. I did try and say up front about sort of make out the owl was friendly, and obviously in the description I say the owl's friendly. And yeah, so I tried to make sure that the owl noticed and went to help, not. But then the stories are kind of designed to help with things like anxiety and worry, and part of that is seeing the worst options rather than seeing the best options. So, for example, many of my stories have things like, and then the character hears footsteps behind them or gets this sense that they're being followed. And obviously, it's a story that I'm doing that's positive. So there won't be anything bad, but I normally portray it as, and the character doesn't feel threatened, but is a bit uncertain about this and isn't comfortable with that uncertainty or something. Because obviously, I want the listener to be kind of matching those patterns and learning from what I'm doing. Um, and obviously, if people don't, yes, a gerbil is a cute animal. Um, anyway, let's see what people have said. Um, yes, you were missed last week, Ellen. I'm used to seeing your comments over here. And sometimes, obviously, if there's someone else knocking around, I'm used to seeing you comment or interact or reply. Like if someone 10 minutes or 20 minutes into my story is bombarding me with things that they want included when I've already started, and so I can't be reading, I see your little comments come up over there sometimes, and a couple of other people's. So, yeah, sorry for the technical hiccup. In theory, this is supposed to be as simple as I click a button that says go live and it works. But tonight I pressed go live and it worked until I couldn't see any comments. And I thought, oh, I didn't really think everyone's blanking me, obviously. But yeah, I did think, oh, please don't be something wrong. That means I'm going to have to restart the whole thing somehow. Because you can't just pause it and restart it. You've got to redo a whole new listing. So, so yeah. And I've got my pinky purpley pen, my pad. I'm surprised we've already made it to the 10th one of these. It seems to go by so quick. As you will have seen probably on my posts on Facebook or on the community tab here on YouTube, I'm going to do a live stream, essentially Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So I probably won't become excessive with my stories on those nights, because I don't want to go over midnight on Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day. And I don't want to go over midnight on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, because there'll be loads of fireworks going off outside behind me and I'll be missing out. So I'll have to make sure on those two nights, not that it's nighttime for all of you, 2 p.m. obviously for some of you. So I don't want to kind of do it too late on those nights. I don't want to be telling a story at gone midnight like I have done in the last 2 sleep stories. Hello, Anna. Glad you found my channel too. So let's have a look. Yeah, she would be. And so that would be a good reason why I should at least spend things like New Year's Eve, seeing New Year's Eve with my wife, seeing New Year's Day in with my wife, rather than staring at a computer screen, telling probably a random story. I've no idea how random yet, but I suspect it'll be a random story. So, yes, and another thing is that I can't imagine many people will actually probably be falling asleep to my sleep stories on those nights. So if it turns out that people say, you know what, we're not likely to tune in, then I might not do it. Or I might do it at a slightly different time or something. But we can discuss that in the next couple of videos, see what you guys think, whether you want me to do this on Christmas Eve, and so my Christmas Eve, obviously it'll be in the middle of the day for some of you, and New Year's Eve, because if I do it on New Year's Eve, for example, am I actually going to be talking someone to sleep, or are all the people who are in the same time zone as me going to be actually having me on somewhere in the background while they're waiting, watching Jules Holland or something on TV, and watching the fireworks and everything? So So hopefully, I can get some ideas from yourselves. Yep, everyone does deserve a day off, but when you get into a routine, I know it's only 10 episodes in, but I've had quite a few stories with tropical islands. I've got, I think, I counted 140 stories or something currently on my YouTube channel. I don't think I use tropical island or something as a way of. I'm going to write that idea down anyway, but I don't use tropical island. I don't think as a topic to narrow down with. I know one of mine. I think the one with the king and queen going and visiting an island, visit a tropical island. Trouble is, I can never remember what's in most of my stories. I remember bits and pieces of some of them because some little bits I think, oh, I quite like that, and so I remember those bits, and I never remember what stories they're from. Yes, the one downside of not doing this, and obviously I had this conversation with some of you in the community thing where I was saying, do I keep doing my live stories like this or not? Because when I keep them live, I lose lots and lots of subscribers, literally like 7 a week per video. So sometimes even more than that. So I had the whole big thing of, should I keep doing it or shouldn't I? And as part of that, I pointed out that something that comes out of these that doesn't come out normally is that doing them kind of forces me to do another story, for one. And those stories, as you will have realized, can be much longer than my normal stories. That how I normally do this um, doesn't make stories as long generally as if I'm doing it to camera here, where I get your ideas and I create it around your ideas. Something about this process makes it a bit more creative than just doing it myself, sitting with a microphone in front of me with, say, 6 words that I've just come up with and trying to fit a story around those 6 words. It definitely works much better. Antique shop. It definitely works, and hummingbird. I saw that. It definitely works much better when I'm doing this. So if I didn't do this New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve, obviously I'd like being able to go to bed early, or at least having a relaxed evening, not thinking I've got to work at 10 or whatever. Antique shop. Trying to talk and right. Hummingbirds. I won't be able to read that. Hummingbirds. So I'd still be tempted probably to do something like it if I didn't do it at that time. Like see if there's a different time, like maybe on a Saturday or something, that could work just for a one-off or a two-off, just to get your ideas still and to do this process, even if it's not at a time that anyone's going to fall asleep to. If that ends up something that you think, oh, we'd still like to do it, even if we're not falling asleep there and then to it, and then I've got something to edit and turn into a story for you. So I've written hummingbirds down. Some of them can be eventful descriptions. I saw the word baking, but I've missed a chunk. Ravens or raven. What are you doing wrong? I don't know. There's a playlist that's literally, I add every video I ever do to the playlist. So there's that playlist. There's a playlist on my channel called Healing Sleep Stories for Grown-ups, and that playlist has literally every single sleep story that I do on that one playlist. So that's my playlist specifically for the sleep story videos. And then I have, obviously, if you just go to uploads, so YouTube doesn't show everything if you just scroll like along what they normally show you. But if you then click uploads, it will show you all the uploads, and you can scroll through all the uploads back as far as the uploads go. So there's sort of three ways to do that. Baking a cake. I think that's cropped up in one recently-ish, but let's write it down. Baking a cake. So baking a cake that hummingbirds fly out of. Yes, I don't understand why people unsubscribe. The one that I did, I think it was the Cabin in the Woods story. I think it was that one that was my first ridiculously long story. I think it was like 100 minutes long. I left it for 2 days, I think, because I didn't go to bed. As some of you will know, you chatted to me on Facebook until like 2 a.m. or half two, and probably even later than that. And so I just forgot to set it to unlisted, and then I thought, oh, I'll just leave it for a day or two, just to see if, knowing that there's this big long story in there, if people think, oh, I'm unsubscribing from this, given that I've had this big thing on my channel talking about them and talking about how you don't have to watch it. And I started that specific video saying, if you don't want to watch this and you don't like seeing this sort of thing, don't watch it, etc. Maybe people won't unsubscribe this time. And so I checked it after 2 days. And then the first day, I think it was 7 or 8 people or something had unsubscribed. And then by the second day, another 7 or 8 had unsubscribed. So, sounds and smells are good. Yeah, I include those, obviously. Yeah, I agree. If you don't want to watch the live streams, just don't watch them. It's no problem. And if you do want to watch them, because something I did with that one is someone kindly, I can't remember who it was, but one of you lot here kindly did a timestamp saying, if you want to see the story, this is where it starts. And so I just left that timestamp in there, and I pinned that as the top comment, so that anyone else looking, if they didn't want to watch, if they think, oh, I don't like all this interaction stuff. I nearly put that as a suggestion. I don't want to watch all this interaction stuff. Then just skip to this bit. But yeah, still, I just have to remember to to hide the video. Australian outback. I'll see what I can do. It may not be exactly Australian outback, but so that's the other thing, that if a suggestion is something that I think, I don't know if I know enough about that to be able to describe it in sensory specific terms, then I might try and use something similar to it. You say can't go wrong with water. In my story the other week, where the person dives under the water and becomes a shark, someone complained about the fact that they can't swim, and so that was absolutely terrifying to them and they hated it. So even though I do say in the description that that's what happens in the story, yeah, so you can have water, and somewhat almost anything you do someone won't like. Strawberries. Got to try and read my handwriting. Let me just put water as well anyway. Light shining through stained glass windows. That's a long thing to write. Stained glass windows. Because inevitably I would do light shining through it. That's what I quite like in Chichester Cathedral here, is the stained glass windows with the light shining through. Rain and thunder. Again, I know that some people are scared of thunder and don't like it near them. Blowing bubbles. Something interesting about doing this is obviously that I've no idea while I'm reading these words how I'm going to piece any of this together. And then I say, close your eyes, and then I have to create something. Waterfall. Yep, we always come back to food and animals. Well, yeah. Yeah, being warm and dry. Let me just put that near somewhere here. Marzipan fruits. Oh, let's just jump down a bit. That's the one problem with YouTube, is that the live chat bit jumps down. The uploads page should have, if it only shows 30, it should have a button to click along to the next page of them if you're on a device that for some reason is only showing 30. What's the Egyptian cat question mark bit 2? Did I miss something? Yeah, as soon as I saw hummingbirds, I thought of blackbirds coming out of a pie, obviously, once the baking came down. Yeah, we've had an Egyptian cat. I think I've had quite a few archaeological digs in my stories. They seem to crop up quite often. And Egypt seems to end up coming up. Blah, blah, can't talk now. Egypt seems to come up quite often. Yeah, I can't imagine anyone has made it through all of the stories unless you've been following the channel since before all the story, since as the stories have come about. But even then, I listen to meditainment CDs. I quite like meditainment CDs. I've listened to them since the late 90s, maybe early 2000s at the latest, like 2000, 2001. And I pretty much every night listen to exactly the same one or two, not every night, but every night I listen to one. I listen to exactly the same one or two because they work fine, they're familiar, and I know they're fine. The trouble is they're only like 15 to 20 minutes long, and so sometimes I have to listen to my own stories if I need something that actually is going to help rather than just something that's nice to listen to. Um, let's have a look. Yeah, so even my own, the main one I listen to of my own is my Prince Adventure one that I not wrote, created um, back in about 2004, I think. Let's have a look. Everything's jumped. Yeah, my formula always includes an intro that's essentially a suggestion saying you will fall asleep. The question is how fast and what bits of this will make you fall asleep. So it just enhances the effectiveness of it. The rainbow, I'm aware I've got to try and get these words copied a little quicker because it's already half past. Watering house plants. I was doing that earlier today. Yeah, someone commented, I can't remember who it was a little while ago, about my distant storm story and how they like that because they don't like thunderstorms, but they like the idea that they could see it on the horizon and hear that just very faintest rumble. Um, but not be affected by it. Let me have a look. What else is here? Yeah, we had the Victorian greenhouse. Um, no, it was the. So this is the reply to me asking about the Egyptian cat. No, it was after the Egyptian cat one prompted me. I think it was that one that prompted me to write my message in the community tab, and then it was my long story, very long story, that suddenly um, is my very long story, first long story, very very like 100-minute story that I thought, oh, no one would want to unsubscribe from a 100-minute story. People who follow this channel like stories. Who wouldn't want to listen to a 100-minute story? And they unsubscribed. Yeah, Meditainment is just a brand. Roasting marshmallows. Yeah, that was the idea. A brand mixing meditation and entertainment. Let me see. Roasting marshmallows. Let's have a look. I want to be started in just a minute though, and this keeps jumping. The other thing is by having a reasonably consistent structure and by using the same story, it becomes more effective because you experience what in hypnotic terms is fractionation of going in and out of that kind of state faster and more efficiently because your body, it's a bit like um, Pavlov's dogs, that your body gets so used to responding to the stimulus the same way that it knows where it's going before it's gone there. In the same way that if you've had an injection, if you frequently have had injections at a dentist to have your sort of gum numbed or something, then all the dentist has to do is pinch your cheek and your gum will start numbing because your brain knows that's what happens next. I don't know what s'mores are. Let's have a look. Always seems to be, well, no, it was my fault that the rats came from Mars, but the space rats. Right, I think that's most things. Let me just put cats from Mars. Yeah, space rats were cool. And I haven't yet had a complaint about the space rats. It might be because no one's been awake long enough to get to them, but um, yeah, it might be no one was able to be awake long enough to get to the space rats that no one's complained yet. So chocolate marshmallow sandwich. Ah, I don't know what graham crackers are, but I do know what chocolate is. Marshmallows are. So I have my list. It's reasonably unreadable. I'm starting 5 minutes late, but then I started a specific video 7 minutes late. And I started the previous version of this for those of you who didn't know. Yeah, space rats were in my, I don't even know what story, my Portal story, I think. um, suggested a couple of weeks ago. They crop up on Mars. Um, it looks like there's going to be cats to catch the space rats on Mars now, apparently. So I'm just about to start the story. So if you are, um, so Plumpy hopefully made it to the portals. So if you are using this, following this to fall asleep to, then I'm about to start, and you can settle down ready to fall asleep. I use counting down because it's a very effective way of conveying the idea of going deeper, becoming more absorbed. It gives something to focus on. And I did go through years where I tried not to use counting down too much because it's often a bit out of place in a story or something, even though sometimes you can just worm it into the story. Um, but yeah, so in hypnosis, you use things like counting down quite a lot. Anything where you're kind of associating different, say, vocal tones with different levels, like different numbers. And then if I talk like this, I might be saying one. And then whenever I talk like this, the person feels more sleepy. Whereas when I talk like this, I might be saying 10. And so when I say 10, people feel more awake. So that's kind of why. Um, but yeah, this might be more than an afternoon nap. Yeah, so that's kind of why I use counting down sometimes, because I did it in a live stream and someone kind of said how incredible it was. And because I got that direct feedback there and then, I thought, I suppose I better use it a little bit more frequently in a couple of my live stream stories where people who are on the live stream obviously have asked for it. So if you're not going to fall asleep to this now, obviously I'll edit this story and it will be available on Saturday, the edited version. So any coughing, sniffing, spluttering, anything I might do during this story, any mistakes I might make, I will edit them out. So if you're following this, then just take a moment to allow yourself to get comfortable and allow your eyes to close. And as you relax there, so I'll just tell this sleep story in the background. And while you drift comfortably asleep, I don't know whether you'll drift asleep faster with the sound of my voice or the spaces between my words. And you can find yourself in an antique shop, in a quirky small town. And in this antique shop, you're just looking at different items, small little heavy metal ornaments, that smell of an antique shop, the sound of the bell ringing as people walk in and out, and the door strikes the bell, and the owner of the antique shop, just behind the counter, with a little bit of headgear on that's got a tiny microscope over one eye. And they seem to be fixing a watch or doing something over there at the counter. And you continue looking around the antique shop. And you notice some really old, worn teddy bears up on a shelf. You pick one of those teddy bears up, noticing how heavy the bear is compared to modern day teddies. and the smell of that old bear. And you feel this kind of urge to just hold that bear beside you, almost holding it, hugging it, just for a moment before putting it back on the shelf. Just something about the bear made you feel this urge to just hold it that bit closer. And you continue walking around, squeezing through narrow bits in the antique shop, seeing plates in glass cabinets, thinking to yourself that you've got to breathe in. And even though there's a good bit of distance between you and the glass cabinet, something in your head says, I'm going to knock it, I best keep away. Even though you can see that there's no way you could actually knock it. And that it's more of a psychological thing. And you find a bookcase full of old books. And as you pull one of those old books off the bookcase, so a waft of that old book reaches your nose and gives you that pleasant old book feeling. And you open the old book, you feel the cover, you feel the pages as you turn them, how stiff, how thick those pages are. You run your fingertips down the page and can feel the text on the page. You read the date of 1786. And you have a look at a couple of the pages, at the way the book's written. And think about how old that language is now, the differences in how it's written compared to modern books. And you have a little look in the book, see if there's anything in it. One of the beauties of old books is when you find something in the pages of the old book, like a newspaper cutting, or a bookmark, or a little note, or a card. Just something that adds a little history to the book, a connection to a previous owner. Like the fountain pen writing in the front where the owner has written their name. And you place the book back, carry on looking round the shelves, seeing some dolls that at first, and in this antique shop are some drawers, and you open the drawers and you can rummage through little bits and pieces, old rings, old buttons and brooches, old badges of all sorts. And so you just flick through, have a search through those, the sound of running your hand through them. And then you carry on walking around the antique shop and you see a thick velvet curtain hanging down and a sign above the curtain identifying that through this curtain are the rarest items, the rarest antiques. So you walk through that curtain into the back part of the shop. and the lights are dimmer back here. The velvet curtain dulls some of the sound from the front of the shop, makes this area just feel so much calmer, more relaxed, like the room is so quiet. And you take a look around, seeing paintings on the walls, and seeing some really old books here. And you find one of the books just seems to get your attention. The slight bit of light that is in this room glistens off the golden edge of the book. So you go over to that book, you open the first page, and you start reading. And as you read down that page, so the strangest thing happens. All of your attention feels like it's being drawn into the book. And you turn the next page, and it's as if everything around your peripheral vision is just getting darker and darker as your attention focuses more and more on the book. And you turn the next page, and you start to hear sounds of seagulls, sounds of lapping water, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. And you turn the next page, and out the corner of your eye, you notice a hint of blue ocean, blue sky, golden sand under your feet. And by the next page, you find yourself on a tropical island. And you look up from the book. You look around, noticing the blue sky, the occasional wispy cloud, birds flying overhead. You look back down and there's no book anymore. It's as if you've somehow been transported into what you were reading. And so you begin to walk along the seafront, that water rolling in across your feet and dragging back out again. And you turn around and look behind you, look all around you, and you notice the tropical trees, their gentle movement in the slight breeze, the tall grass around the trees. And you continue to explore. And you walk up to the grass, rest yourself down on the grass, rest your hands down beside you, gently running your fingers through the grass, feeling its coolness, how soft the grass is. Hearing the rustle of the leaves overhead. And you rest back on your elbows, gazing out to sea. with your head just gently shaded from the sun. And out in the distance, you can see some dolphin playing, leaping in the water. And you can almost find that sea hypnotic as it rolls in so rhythmically with that regular sound of the water rolling and out, in and out. And as you rest there, so you find your eyes just want to gently shut with that rhythmic sound of the waves. And as your eyes shut, so you become more aware with your ears, hearing those sounds, and then hearing this faint buzzing sound somewhere in the distance. A buzzing followed by a slight pause and another buzzing. And you start trying to work out what that sound is. And you're really curious. So you open your eyes, you walk along the beach, you follow that sound, gently moving your head slightly side to side, following that sound. Allowing the slight movement of your head to help with pinpointing where that sound is coming from in space. And as you get close to the sound, eventually you catch movement out the corner of your eye. You start walking toward that movement, and you notice the most beautiful hummingbird hovering near some plants, popping its head and its beak, its tongue into one plant, and then managing to back out and then pop itself into another plant and then back out. And you think about the amount of effort it must take to be able to hover like that. And you get curious by the fact that you can see the hummingbird's body. It's so stationary, and yet its wings are moving so fast. It's just like a slight blur around the body. And you start to think about the idea of slowing down time, what that might be like. And as you begin to think about slowing down time, you notice that that hummingbird seems to slow down its movements until after a moment, its wings just gently slow to a stop, and you walk over to that hummingbird and you walk around the hummingbird, looking around that hummingbird floating in space, stationary. And you find it an incredible experience to be able to see the way light reflects and refracts on that hummingbird, the changing patterns of colours as you move around. And somewhere you're still reading that book. You've just become so drawn into the story, into the experience, that you're experiencing it as it unfolds. But there's something about this book that does that. And so you continue exploring this island. And you walk deeper into the trees, heading towards the middle of the island. And you don't know how big the island is, but you don't think it feels that big. So you decide to just explore and see if you can reach the other side. And as you explore, so the sun begins to set, and you decide to set up a camp as you reach the other side of the island. You grab some wood, you make a makeshift shelter with the wood, some large leaves, some vines to weave it all together, some other wood. You dig a small pit, put some of the bits of wood in the pit, other bits on top of that. You create a spark and light that fire. As that sun sets low on the horizon over the sea, and you can see the way the light shimmers on the surface of the sea and the stars appearing in the sky as the sun lowers deeper and deeper, and the sound of the crackling campfire as you sit back in your makeshift shelter. And in your makeshift shelter, you take the bag off your back, and you don't have much with you, but you do have a large bag of marshmallows. You get one of those marshmallows, put it on the end of a stick, and hold it out above the flame, smelling that smell of that marshmallow melting. And then eating that hot marshmallow carefully off the end of that stick, noticing how strong that smell gets as you move the marshmallow close to your nose, and the feeling of the marshmallow as you have to pull slightly at it with its stringiness and its squidginess as you chew it and eat it, that texture, the taste, the smell. As you relax more here, and then you have another marshmallow and another, until you feel it would be a good time to just relax back and drift off asleep. And so while you begin to drift asleep in your makeshift shelter, you focus your attention on that sound of the campfire and the slightly more distant sound of the waves lapping gently on the shore. And you just begin to drift and fall asleep. And while you fall asleep, feeling the warmth from that fire, you have this sense of walking somewhere incredibly warm. You find yourself walking through a desert. You can hear some chiseling and other work going on in the distance. You just have this sense that that's where you're walking to. And so you go with the experience, walking through that desert, getting closer to that sound, feeling like you'd like to get out of the sun. And then as you climb up one dune and look down the other side, you see a camp with some white tents. And you're some way away from the pyramids here in Egypt. And so you head down the other side, head into the white tent, and notice that there's an archaeological dig going on here, of which you're a part of. And they've been waiting for your arrival, dusting bits of pots, finding minor little bits and pieces. But what they found is a small little sealed space. And they wanted you to arrive to be the one to carefully open whatever's in that space. And so you get yourself prepared. You climb down into the pit. You then, with the help of someone else, remove a stone, heavy stone, and a puff of air comes out of the chamber behind. You shine a torch into that chamber. And it's only a small chamber, and you can see what looks a bit like an urn at the back of that chamber. And so you put the torch in your mouth and crawl into the chamber. Take that urn, crawl your way back out again. You can feel the excitement of wanting to know what this urn is. And you take the torch out your mouth. You turn it off. And as you do that, so around the urn, it looks like there's smoke or mist forming. And that forms and gets thicker and thicker. And you pick up the urn, you climb out of the pit. You place it on the ground and you stand back as that cloud begins to fill the tent. And then you hear a meow. And as the cloud clears, You see the most beautiful black cat sitting tall where the urn was, and around the neck of that black cat is a golden necklace with some rectangular bars hanging down and symbols down those bars. You don't understand what it is you've seen or where this cat came from, and so you tentatively approach that cat. And as you approach, so the cat just starts purring as if it likes the idea of you getting closer to it. And you get down on the cat's level. You gently reach out towards that cat. The cat tilts its head slightly and moves its head forward slightly, as if to allow you to connect. And you touch that cat. And you stroke just behind its ear and its back, and you feel the warmth of that cat. And you stroke that cat and think it feels just as real as any real cat. And then the cat moves closer to you, standing up and walking. And you back up slightly so that you can sit down. The cat climbs on your lap, turns around, gets itself comfortable, and plonks itself down on your lap. And while it's resting on your lap, with you stroking the back of that cat, feeling its fur, feeling its purring through your legs, through your fingertips, you begin to read the symbols on the necklace round its neck. And as you read the symbols, so you notice that these cats are from Mars, that a civilization started on Mars. And thousands of years ago, this ancient feline civilization needed to leave their planet because the atmosphere was thinning. The planet was getting colder, and so they used the technology they had to create ships to leave. And they traveled to the nearest suitable planet, which was Earth. And they settled down here on Earth. And as they arrived, a primitive ape-like creature seemed to be in awe of these small furry animals that came off the spaceships. And so they began to worship them, revere them. And as time went on, they began to spread themselves around, moving out from Egypt, out to other areas, before colonizing most of the planet. And then the Person realized that this cat must have somehow been in some kind of stasis, and they'd never thought of cats as being an incredibly intelligent species from another planet. And yet, on reflection, they do seem to get everyone doing things for them. And they wondered why this cat here was in stasis. Who put it here? How long has it been here? And the cat didn't seem to want to really communicate. It just seemed to want some closeness, some attention. And then when it was good and ready, it jumped down off his lap. It jumped down off their lap. And it just left the tent. And you get up to follow. But when you leave the tent, you notice the cat has gone. And you decide to try and figure out where. You wonder whether it may have gone over towards the main pyramids. So you start walking towards those pyramids. And then you notice some small footsteps. And then you notice some small footprints in the sand. And the wind is beginning to blow those footprints away. But you get this idea that the cat is heading to the pyramid. So you head over the dunes. And it looks like the cat was travelling quite fast. And so you run to catch up. Then you hear this low rumbling coming from the pyramids as you near them. And you see the cat walking towards the entrance to one of the pyramids. It enters the pyramid, you catch up. The rumbling's getting louder and louder. And you follow, entering that pyramid. And as soon as you enter the pyramid, so the rumbling seems to stop. And you don't think whatever was causing the rumbling has stopped. You just think somehow the sound is different in here. And you're surprised to see that the pyramid is lit up inside. The rocks just seem to be glowing. And so you head into that pyramid to try and find the cat. And eventually you find a space that you don't remember ever seeing before when you've been in these pyramids. It's just a small tunnel, and you crawl through that small tunnel. And then you come out into a room. It looks a bit like you would imagine a control room of some kind. And you realize that this is some kind of a spaceship. And you see the cat sat up on a seat, front paws on some controls. And you try and engage in conversation with that cat. But you know the cat can't understand you just like you can't understand the cat. But you know that generally people understand each other and animals understand each other non-verbally. So you know it's not quite as nuanced communication, but you near the cat, you relax, you look over at the cat, and you start thinking about what you'd like to communicate. And you just get absorbed in the moment. You get absorbed in how you're expressing your communication. In the same way that if you ask an animal to relax, you communicate relax, non verbally, not just with the word that you say. And so you just hope the cat can understand you. And you get this sense as that cat gazes over at you, a bit like maybe that cat has just smiled at you. And you just have that feeling of that. And then the cat presses a button, and you feel a slight judder. And then you get jolted back a little bit, and you suspect that you've just taken off in this spaceship. And then almost instantly, you feel another judder, another jolt. And then the cat climbs down off the seat and just works its way out of that room. You follow it down the tunnel. You follow it down and out of this pyramid or this spaceship. And you exit into another really hot location. And you suddenly recognize it as being Australia. And you notice there's some red dust around. And you think to yourself that it has a slight Martian-y look to it in this area. And the cat starts heading to Uluru. And when it reaches it, a passage opens up and the cat just walks right in. And you follow that cat. And then lights come on, similar to when you walked into the pyramid, with rock tunnels where the rocks just seem to light the way. And you follow that cat down one tunnel, then another, until eventually you come out in this vast room. And you see what looks like tens of thousands of urns all around the sides of this room. And that cat runs over to a button, presses a button, and all the urns seem to have mist like before, suddenly surrounding them. And the next minute, you notice all around you are thousands of cats. And they all jump down, climb down into the main chamber. And that black cat comes over to you and sits down in front of you. All the other cats come and sit behind that cat. And the cat lowers its head. You head over to the cat. The cat raises its head as if to make eye contact with you. You get down on the same level as the cat. And the cat pops off its necklace, takes a step back, and looks down at it. You reach forward and pick that up, feeling the weight of that gold in your hand. And then the cat turns, starts communicating with all the other cats. And then they all start heading out of the rock, heading out to that spaceship. And you're unsure exactly what's happened, what's going on. But it looks like maybe these were all the cats who survived the trip from Mars. That they just needed to be brought out of stasis. And that you had done that for one of them. And then helped that one to rescue the rest. And you follow them back to that pyramid, to that spaceship. You enter as well. It stops off at Egypt. It just seems to be stopping to let you off because none of the other cats leave. That cat just looks over at you. You get the message. You leave back to where you can go to the archaeological dig. And then that spaceship rises into the air and you watch it shooting off in an instant out of sight. You head back to the dig, carrying that necklace. You give that necklace a number. You put it in a box, knowing it's going to find its way to a museum somewhere, or perhaps even just in a drawer somewhere. And you decide that no one would believe you if you told them the whole experience. And then you get this feeling of walking back from that archaeological dig. And as you do, so you have this feeling of waking up on that beach with the embers of that fire, the sun rising. You decide to liven up the fire a little bit more, have some marshmallows for breakfast. Before exploring the rest of this tropical island. And as you explore the rest of this tropical island, so out the corner of your eyes, you notice the sea fading away. You start having this feeling of turning pages under your fingertips. And then you find yourself back in that antique shop, back in that area out the back, turning the pages of that book, nearing the end of that volume, and then reaching the end of that volume, turning the back cover. And you have this curious feeling like the necklace that you imagined, the necklace you saw while reading. You think you've seen that somewhere before. And you don't know whether you've seen it somewhere before, and so your brain somehow included it in the story, or whether it was in the story and somehow it's in this shop. And so you head back out of this section, back to the drawers. You start searching through the drawers again. In the back of the drawer, you notice a glint of gold, and you put your hand in. You pull that necklace through. And you realize it is the same necklace as the one found on the archaeological dig. And you wonder whether this is a sign. So you take it to the person at the counter. You have to try and get their attention. They're so engrossed in what they're fixing. You say that you'd like to buy that necklace. And they're so engrossed in whatever it is they're fixing. They just say, yeah, whatever. You can pay whatever you want. And you give them all the money you've got on you. And you leave the shop, with that bell dinging as you open the door, and dinging again as you close it behind you. Walking out onto the street of this quirky town. You start heading down the street towards a park. And as you walk, so you're looking at that necklace in your hands, examining it. And you can't see any marks on it that show that it was made in some kind of recent time. And you take a look at that on the front and the back. You notice it's got the Egyptian hieroglyphs on it. And you get down to the park. You begin to walk through the park. You pass a person selling some strawberries by the punnet. You buy a punnet of the strawberries, having to use your card, seeing the frustration on their face. You walk into that park, sit down eating the strawberries as you examine that necklace, trying to work out whether anything from your experience was real, whether there really were cats from Mars. And you watch as a raven lands a little way away from you, cawing at you. And you know it's saying, I want a strawberry. So you throw a couple of the strawberries towards it, and it eats those strawberries. And you know that raven will now remember you, and remember that you're a kind human, and it'll be more trusting of you. and you carry on examining that necklace. And then you put it in your pocket, sit back against a tree, just thinking while you run your fingers on that necklace in your pocket about whether those cats were real, what that book was that you were reading, what kind of book can draw you in like that. And as you rest there under that tree, so you notice that plopping sound of some rain on the leaves above. You can notice some darker clouds beginning to roll in, and the raven flies away to find somewhere dry to go. So you head home through the park. As you get home, you place that necklace on the side. You sit yourself down in the conservatory. You can hear the rain building on that conservatory as it gets heavier and heavier. And then hear that distant rumble of thunder, seeing the occasional flash of clouds lighting up, finding that rain relaxing you, almost like the sound is massaging through you, like it's almost massaging your shoulders, your neck. Just that white noise kind of rain. As you continue to listen to that, it takes you back in your mind to younger times where you can't go out and play because of the rain, where you're running around and making make believe play for yourself, where you're making bubble mixture out of washing up liquid and water and blowing bubbles and getting soapy water everywhere. Just aware of times where you have to be imaginative and come up with ways of occupying yourself, like making things with kitchen roll and toilet roll tubes, with cereal boxes, and looking out and seeing the way water runs down a window, each drip lands on the window and then finds its path. And sometimes having that sense of racing the drips, seeing a couple land near each other, watching them take different paths and wondering which one will reach the bottom of the window first. And the things you used to do to occupy yourself on a rainy day. And then, as that thunder begins to near, you drift out of your reverie. You exit the conservatory. You drift off to sleep in bed, aware that the next day you're going to try and learn more about those cats, whether there's any validity to their existence. Because although you've got this feeling like those cats are just in a story, another part of you says, but what if? What if that experience was real? You have this necklace. So what if the experience was real? And you think that as you drift comfortably asleep. And the next day, you go out, and the first thing you notice is how fresh the air smells after a nighttime storm, how calm the air feels, that enhanced smell of the grass. And you head down to the local village church. And nowadays, few people come here when there's not a service or something on. So you have to really struggle to push open the large wooden doors into the echoey church, noticing your echoey footsteps as you walk through the church. And noticing the way the morning sun is shining in the large stained glass window at the back of the church, creating a rainbow of colours across the ground, through the room, with just the most relaxing feeling. And you find it interesting that those colours are settling on the Bible that you go over to read. And you're searching through the book, looking for some references to cats. And you find some references. And you think it's curious about the way that cats seem to have this status, even thousands of years ago. And you like to do your own manual research, not just Googling everything. So you head from the church down to the library. And the library in this quirky old town is a library in an old building. Not a new library that looks all modern, but a library that looks like books come in and they stay, and have done for hundreds of years. And you start searching some of those old books, looking for different references to cats. And everywhere you look, it seems that cats were revered for some reason. And then you think you catch a glimpse of a cat walking through the library. So you close the book you're looking at, and you head in the direction you thought you saw a cat. And you head all the way to the back of the library, and you see an exit. You go through that exit. and you see a family of foxes playing around out the back of the library. And this black cat just sat near them. And the foxes don't seem to be scared by this cat. And the cat doesn't seem to be scared by the foxes. And you know this is unusual. And as you walk closer to the cat, so the foxes scamper off. And yet the cat remains. And you walk right up to the cat, and it just watches you as if it's making eye contact with you. And you sit down on the floor. And the cat rests its head on your leg and starts to purr. And you start to stroke the neck of the cat, stroke the side of the cat. And you ask the cat, even though you know it won't understand you, whether any of this is real. And the cat just stands up and stands tall, as if to say, I'm here in front of you. What do you think? And a smile comes across your face. And as soon as the cat sees that smile, it confidently walks off through the garden out the back of the library, through a fence at the back. And you've no idea where it's going, what its plans are, what your experience really means. All you know is it's something you'll ponder about and be thinking about for years to come, something you'll be researching, wanting to learn more about. And it did let you keep that necklace. But you know no one would believe you if you tried to say where that necklace came from. And after that cat walks away, so you decide to go and have a cup of tea at the nearby cafe. You drink that tea, ponder your experience before heading home as the day draws to an end, knowing you've now got a subject you're going to research for years and probably become obsessed with wondering whether space technology will become advanced enough to allow humans to visit Mars within your lifetime, to see if there's any signs to back up whether this is where these cats came from, and wondering and making yourself chuckle whether there was anything that cats on Earth like. You know, cats on Earth run around after rats and mice, and you wonder whether there's anything similar on Mars that perhaps these cats would either be friends with or chase around after. And you know that's a silly idea. But you know it's equally silly to assume that just one species would have lived on a planet. And with that thought, you go to bed, relax down, and you drift and float asleep.